Hey guys, it's me Nes and we're going to react to Super Kick Studios video Ruthless Aggression. Basically the Ruthless Aggression era on how it was considered to be one of the eras that I really enjoy most. And yeah, I started watching WWE back in 2008. That was basically the beginning of the PG era. But let's go back to memory lane and or basically the throwbacks of all the things that happened on how stars were made in this particular area. So now let's get into the video.
Do you guys remember a time where you would sit in front of a big ass box TV watching cartoons, playing games on the PS2 with the cords that were way too small for some reason? The days where you would just have fun, you weren't on the internet all day, people weren't offended at the tiniest thing, and you could just live your best life. Going to school, playing with your toys and games, and watching the WWE. The early to mid 2000s was just a fun time, and for many of us, it was our introduction to professional wrestling. This came in the form of WWE's Ruthless Aggression era. The WWE had just lost a battle with the World Wildlife Fund, and it was time to get the F out. As the F left WWE in the name, so did the attitude. The era where we had stars like Stone Cold and The Rock, that was gone. They were saying goodbye to the WWE and a new generation was ushered in. A generation that is defined by two words.
Ruthless aggression!
Yes.
Now before I start off, I'm going to warn you with the wrestling, I'm also going to be bringing back some nostalgia too, because when you think of these times, there's so many different things that come to mind. I'm sure if y'all grew up like I did, you'll be brought back some memories, so if you don't want to hear it, you can click off now. The first thing that made this time period so special was the talent that was at our fingertips. This time had the perfect mix of stars from the late 90s, stars who came over from WCW, and WWE's own creations. It was such an elite crop of talent. In the Attitude Era, there was Stone Cold, The Rock, Mick Foley, Undertaker. Some of those guys moved over, but they mixed in a whole new generation with those guys. First, we had John Cena. This era and John Cena will forever go hand in hand. It was June of 2002, and out came this generic beefed up wrestler. Little did we know that this man would go on to define an entire generation. Cena would come down to the ring, rapping and spinning bars as hot as 50 Cent, so the crowd organically gained a huge appreciation for the man from West Newbury, Mass. This was a time where stars like Jay-Z, Eminem, and 50 Cent were running the rap game. Cena brought that culture to professional wrestling. This is the same dude who went on to define our generation. He introduced the spinner, he had something called the FU as his finisher, and above all else, he just felt like an actual human being rather than a robotic character. I mean, who didn't love Cena's antics? Without Cena, this era just isn't the same. He captured everything that this era was about perfectly. Then there was this nasty motherfucker Edge. If ruining someone's life was a character, it would be Edge. This dude at every conceivable opportunity would take what he wasn't supposed to. Edge in these years went from a tag team star to a bona fide top tier talent. This man would come out with Lita, making out with her, he would cheat to win. He was so dirty, he banged Lita in the middle of the ring. In what world can you do that? This man legitimately stole another dude's girlfriend while he was injured. Edge was a savage before savagery was cool. Mans is a real life heel. And yo, what the hell did John Cena ever do to you? Pathetic. Then we had Eddie Guerrero. Look, there are very few people in professional wrestling history who capture the undivided attention of an audience like Eddie did. He would come out to the ring in his low rider with the natural swagger, he had that tremendous in-ring ability with the picture-perfect frog splash. But what made us gravitate towards Eddie so much was his charisma. It was just unrivaled. When something would go wrong, Eddie would make that face into the hard cam. You know exactly which one I'm talking about. And then he would find some creative and entertaining way to lie, cheat, and steal in the most entertaining fashion. He got fired from WWE, he sobered up, and he had a beautiful redemption story. He proved that the smaller wrestler could draw just as much as the larger than life character.
True.
It was absolutely beautiful. We miss you, Eddie.
Yes.
Then we had The Undertaker. Sure, Undertaker was already established as a star at this point, but I think The Undertaker took his star power and further cemented himself as a great. He had the willingness to work with younger stars like Randy Orton. The streak during this time took on a life of its own because it became a staple of WrestleMania. Just look at WrestleMania, it hasn't felt the same since it ended. This man would scare the living shit out of me as a kid. The eyeball roll? No, man. Just no. That scared the crap out of me. I remember every time he would enter, I would just leave it on mute and tell my dad to call me when he was done.
This is similar to what happened wherein back in '08 I was also scared of Undertaker when he started cutting promos. Like I thought that this guy, again, a scary character that you thought that he's ultimately dead. That was me back in '08 thinking that okay, this guy is dead for sure, cutting promos like he about to bury a lot of wrestlers, and yeah, that made me scared at one point, but damn, it really worked. Despite that, back then his character was supposed to be a dead mortician, or basically like a wizard, and that's who he was. Again, Undertaker, he's golden. Like the character he had made him who he was, and the commitment he had for the company, that he doesn't break character, he just keep going for who he was. Shout out to Undertaker again, or to Mark Calloway. You know, he deserves his props.
This man was chasing around Randy, he was setting shit on fire, he'd put on spectacular matches. Taker on SmackDown, just legendary. Then we had the Beast Incarnate, Brock Lesnar. In 2 years, this man ran roughshod on WWE. He won the Rumble, he had high profile matches with Kurt Angle and Undertaker. The guy won 3 world titles, a King of the Ring, and had a WrestleMania main event and the Rumble win I spoke of in the span of 2 years. The guy is such a GOAT that even to this day, he's won nothing but world titles. This dude was just a sheer badass in the ring. He had the look and the technical skill of someone way smaller than him. He just had all of it, and it's crazy to think that if he didn't leave WWE, John Cena would never have reached the heights that he did. And as much as
True. I think that it's one of those biggest what ifs, because despite Cena was on the rise, Brock was supposed to be the next face of the company. He had everything. The only thing I could say is that yes, he had everything, but promo was the one thing he lacked. But if he ever did well in the, mic, if he did well in mic skills or promos, he would be one of the most decorated, gifted face that Vince wanted all this time. It's one of those things that yeah, he didn't want to continue because of travel, situations that he kind of burned out. He wanted to do things limited, and that's what it is. And at that point Vince was like, you know what, let's shift that to John Cena, and rest is history, and that's how it is.
WWE wants us to forget about him and think of him as Error 404, we have to mention Chris Benoit. How many great matches did he give us? Like, sure, he did what he did, but if we're looking at just the wrestler, one of the greatest pure wrestlers of all time. Then you had a guy like Batista. Growing up, he was one of my favorites. I don't know exactly if it was the machine gun entrance or the dominant style, but something about Batista just screamed top guy, and I just gravitated towards him. He was just a naturally soft-spoken beast. Batista came in and organically became one of the biggest superstars on that roster. That was thanks to the teaching of Triple H. How could we not talk about Triple H and Evolution? All hits, no misses. They had Ric Flair, who during this time was still going strong, Triple H in his reign of terror and 25-minute promos where he would just randomly stop talking at the weirdest times, like he didn't really know where he should emphasize his sentences, kind of like how Jeff Hardy does. And then in that group, you had the new blood. They had Batista and Randy Orton. Those four dripped in gold. Everyone in this group reached astronomical heights in their career, and no one flopped.
the thing is, Batista was world champion, I think 36, if I'm not mistaken. So again, age doesn't matter. You know, for him to have the best physique, and I think he's older than Triple H though. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Batista is for sure one of those guys that you could give a lot of credit, because it takes a big role to become the main event and to be that main event guy. And knowing that for his age, the physique he had, the best music, followed by other members of Evolution. Of course, Randy Orton was too new. Yeah, he never stayed as world champion, but that's alright. He had his moments later on. And it was good for those two because they were guided by Ric Flair and Triple H, especially, you know, the guys who experienced the business. And look at what happened to them now. Batista, bigger star in Hollywood at some point in his career, and again, God bless to him, because you know, he made his choices pretty well, that if he doesn't want to do farewell tours, he decided his own decision when to end his wrestling career. Randy Orton still wrestling. Well, get well soon, Randy. And again, Ric Flair, hopefully no more last match, please, Rick. And Triple H now running the company for creative decisions. And again, this is basically what you see back then. It's that they were dominating Raw, and now times have changed again. You know, you don't know what's gonna happen in the future, but regardless, you see two from Randy and Batista as the next stars. Now they're living out their dreams for Batista to hopefully earn himself an Emmy, or you could say like a Grammy. And then Randy Orton, assuming that in the next few years, about to retire soon. But again, goated team for sure, Evolution. They were really the reason that, you know, people may hate, but nobody's gonna hate the way that they do best at Raw as heels.
That was all thanks to Triple H, who is just a god. This group was his idea, and he's the one who wanted to have that slow burner with Batista, which ultimately made him a superstar. Come on, Cena on.
If you didn't do this as a kid, you have no childhood. Oh man, if I remember correctly, I think we drink water bottles. Either you do it in the shower, or maybe like some people do it at school, you know, and they had to spit the water in terms of Triple H style. I can't do it, but yeah, I remember like somewhere when I kind of know that this is a thing. Yeah, I did it before, not on school, but you know, during the showers when you take a bath. And yeah, if you don't do it, no childhood, right? But that's alright. We all do it in some ways.
On Raw and Batista on SmackDown, that was just iconic. How those two's path paralleled each other, amazing. The thing during this time was the development just worked. You had guys like Brock, who was skyrocketed and made into a star. You had Evolution, who made both Randy Orton and Batista into stars with the help of a huge star like Triple H. And Cena, who just clicked with the audience. Randy Orton had one of the best rises ever. The guy came in also looking generic with the generic music, but he did everything so smoothly. This man was a star under Triple H too, not to mention the Legend Killer run, his feud with The Undertaker, and over the years, he made the RKO into one of the most recognized moves in the entire world. This man, what can you even say? He was sadistic, he was downright evil. He was one of very few people that as a kid, I wanted someone to run over with a Zamboni. He would just get more and more devious, and I hated it. These stars could just become stars. That's what was so fun about this time. You didn't have Twitter, you didn't go online and bitch about these things. You were just given what you were given. Either you liked it or you didn't. You had Kurt Angle, who would just put on spectacular matches with guys the size of The Undertaker to the size of Rey Mysterio. He had the intensity, he had the entertainment value. He was just fun to watch. Every time Kurt came onto the screen, you knew you were in for a good time. RVD had this natural athleticism that people wish they did. Beautiful frog splash and a connection with the audience. Yo, I love the singlets, they were so sick. Then we had the greatest mask of all time.
Yep.
Rey Mysterio, far and above, he was the most fun to watch in the ring, dialing up 619s and just killing it. This man's style in the ring was one which people on the roster just wish they could replicate. He brought the passion and made us jump out of our seats. And man, this man was part of a storyline where they put the custody of a child on the line.
Yeah.
You cannot do that in today's world.
Yep.
And then we had Jeff Hardy. It's pretty hard to determine what made Jeff Hardy so likable, whether it was the look, his style of wrestling, or maybe just the electric personality, but this guy just exuded a charisma that not many on that roster did. Who didn't love to see Jeff jump off of high structures? Chris Jericho and his amazing matches and promos. HBK had an insane renaissance of his career when he returned. Nasty ass JBL, who in retrospect is one of the greatest heels I've ever seen. Khali was confused as fuck with his 3 moves of doom. Matt Hardy, Kane, Ric Flair, Umaga, Dudley Boys, Carlito, who I still hate. Shelton Benjamin was a mama's boy. King Booker, we had Hogan, Rock, and Goldberg come back. That roster, man. That roster was just amazing. The thing with these guys was they influenced our style. We'd want to dress and rap like John Cena with the oversized shirt and retro jerseys. We thought it was cool to dress like Batista. Like, I remember I was like, yo, when I grow up, I'm gonna get super jacked, have a bunch of tattoos, keep the same little patch at the bottom of my chin like Batista does, and wear a big ass suit. That's just how the vibe was at that time. And it wasn't just the superstars in wrestling. We had superstars elsewhere too. We were lucky enough to grow up with LeBron, Crosby, Messi, Ronaldo, Ovechkin, Brady. GOAT talents, simply put. I'm not gonna forget the ladies. I remember for me back in the day, it was Selena Gomez, Katrina Kaif, and I mean Up Monday, you know what I'm talking about, and Trish. No, but seriously, the women took every opportunity. Like whether it was being the sideshow or the primary focus, they had a willingness to progress their careers. Trish and Lita main eventing Raw was money. And I mean, boys, who didn't love themselves a good old bikini contest back in the day? Imagine having immigrant parents like me trying to watch that. Like these motherfuckers would change Bollywood movies when I was a kid. I'd be like, why'd you change it? They'd be like, yo, the channel isn't working. I'm like, yo, it was working just fine. Like, mother, I know what they're doing. I watch professional wrestling. Yo, Bollywood songs and movies were so good back in the day, they suck now. How can we talk about this time and not mention the bomb ass games? This time for games was just, you think about it, it was done. Back in the day where studios would just dish out money for any game. We had SmackDown Here Comes the Pain, the SmackDown vs. Raw series, and my personal favorite, Day of Reckoning. Not just in wrestling, we had GTA San Andreas and Vice City, NBA Street, Tony Hawk, so many bomb games that we put countless hours into. The GOAT tier consoles, the PS2, the GameCube, the original Xbox. Oh my god, the nostalgia. Just listen to these sounds and you'll be brought back to a better time. Like, do you guys remember when you would go to the store and they would have these things up and you just stand there and hog it while you let your parents do whatever the hell they wanted? The games just encapsulated this time perfectly. You had a game like Here Comes the Pain, which felt less like a wrestling game and more of a fighting game. You could do all this whack ass stuff, and then there was a game like WrestleMania 19 where you could beat up construction workers. Crush Hour, which was a racing game with wrestlers. They weren't scared to go off the grid and delve into the wild and wacky side of console gaming at this time, and they just created hits that are gonna last forever. So many of us put an endless amounts of time into these games, and as much as I love SmackDown vs. Raw, Day of Reckoning will always be my favorite. We had the dope handhelds too, the PSP, the game.
The PSP. Damn. I remember I had those. God damn, man. Especially that they made good SBR games, but ultimately there are other games that are great, and PSP were basically a good way to, to travel without, to travel with playing the games. Compared to now, you can travel with your own PS5 or other PlayStation, or Xbox, but PSP was really the one that I really enjoyed when I was a kid back then.
Game Boy, the DS. Aside from that, I'm pretty sure a lot of us 2000s kids still played the N64 in one way or another. Oh man, I remember all of these games we played on a TV that looked like this. Nothing but good times. Another thing about this era was the field. The thing during this time was this was when both SmackDown and Raw felt different. Each show had its identity and iconic look to it. You had SmackDown with the fist and the more clean aesthetic, then you had Raw which felt more gritty and had that grungy underground feel to it. This was a time when SmackDown vs. Raw actually was SmackDown vs. Raw. It felt like two completely different shows which were having a bloodbath to put on the better stories, the better matches, and get the crowd on their side. Either you were Team Blue or Team Red. Yo, shout out to Paul Heyman. All these talents didn't have anywhere to go after WCW went out of business. So when you had all these guys, you had to have a brand split because you had so much talent that you just had to let them develop and tell different stories, and it just led to excellence. It just felt different. When you would tune into Monday Night Raw, it was character driven and had all the over the top crap and random shit going on. Dude's balls getting electrocuted, Muhammad Hassan, the Spirit Squad, Eugene, Katie Vick. Oh man, nah, but we had Evolution running the show, then eventually Batista and Triple H, and then it moved to Cena and Edge. On SmackDown, Undertaker, King Booker, the SmackDown 6, Brock Lesnar, Kurt Angle, Cena for the first part of his career. Oh my god, it was just excellence in television. Yo, this was a time where stipulation matches actually meant something.
Here's the thing, right? It really makes sense that back then it's kind of special. Now it's like, okay, it's alright that they added guys from SmackDown goes to Raw. Like the bland split, I understand, but here's the thing: they got all this talent right now, you know, between Raw and SmackDown, and you got NXT. But regardless, Raw and SmackDown talents, and the fact that they didn't do the same thing back then, where they just focus on, for SmackDown you focus on SmackDown stars, and then Raw you focus on Raw. And this time they'll be like, you know what, we're gonna add some SmackDown to Raw in any in any part of the show. And I get it, maybe it's because of the crowd that they love them, but you could at least balance it because you got all these talents. And if you're not gonna use the other talents, what would you gonna do with them, right? Either budget cut or you're not gonna resign them. So it's like back then opportunities were being given to people that they gave a chance. Like, yes, it depends on how you book those shows, but I hope that this year they're gonna, if they're gonna do the draft, hopefully they're gonna separate the Raw stars not going to SmackDown, and then for SmackDown not going to Raw. Just like that, you could at least do trades, yeah, but you have to be very careful on how, of course they have to be very careful on how they're gonna, book the stars and all the wrestlers, the roster that they have. Hopefully they're not gonna waste them for people who's not given an opportunity or a chance.
They weren't just done because it was October or December. You had rivalries so heated, so nasty, that there was only one way to end them, playa, and that was a match with The Undertaker.
Yes.
Man, I miss having legitimate authority figures. You had Teddy Long in his suits, which were far too big for him, and then everyone's favorite Bischoff, Eric Bischoff. When we had the brand split, we had guys like Eric Bischoff and Teddy Long. These guys ran these shows, and these guys breathed new life into what an authority figure was. Doing some research in the Attitude Era, since it was just one roster, it was solely Vince McMahon who was at the top, but having different personalities opened the gates so much more. With this, the Ruthless Aggression Era did the perfect job of integrating older names like Rock, Hulk Hogan, and Goldberg into the mix. The underdogs became top dogs. This was a time where people took risks, guys like Benoit and Guerrero. They said, okay man, go show me what you can do. Just remember this image of Benoit and Eddie standing tall together. This was when the focus was on wrestling. Pure in-ring wrestling mixed with all the over-the-top antics you were used to. Heels were heels, they could sink to these nasty lows. that you just don't see anymore. TV during this time was just hot. Raw and SmackDown. Not to mention all the cartoons we would watch on a Saturday morning. Plus we had this show, this show, this show, this show. Us boys would lie that we didn't watch this show when in reality, we loved it. So many more God level shows that we were lucky enough to witness as kids. Man, this was just a good time where us kids actually watched TV and enjoyed shows with problems and outcomes instead of spending all day on YouTube. You could easily distinguish which show was which from their production, stage design, and of course, the music. You'd start off Raw with Across the Nation or To Be Loved, and man, those songs got you so hyped. It would be these quick cuts from one shot to another, getting you in the groove on Monday nights. Then you had SmackDown, which had Rise Up and I Want It All. Listening to these songs for a lot of us introduced us to a whole new genre of music. I was always one who loved rap, but from here I started to move to rock and metal, wanting to punch down walls and shit like that. Speaking of music, Metalingus, No More Words, The Time Is Now, Word Life, I Walk Alone, The Game, Sexy Boy, Lie, Cheat, Steal, Evolution Song, Burn in My Light, One of a Kind, the list goes on and on. The songs were so damn good. They had these dope melodies which just encapsulated the character and words that expressed what the character was about. They worked so perfectly. Another thing was the concepts. Concepts like Taboo Tuesday, Cyber Sunday, they all felt huge. Dare I say, they were ahead of their time. Revolutionary, some would even say. Before social media popped off and made everything less fun, WWE knew exactly what they were doing. And sure, it was always some bland ass choice and you knew 9 times out of 10 what was gonna happen, but the hype you had for these shows was just different. I remember not going to sleep the night before a pay-per-view. That's how big they felt. You would always be excited to see what type of stages there would be, the props they would use, how the graphics would look. Man, do I ever miss moving graphics. We had all of these sick pay-per-views back in the day. New Year's Revolution, Armageddon, Bad Blood, Backlash, Judgment Day, ECW One Night Stand. WrestleMania was a spectacle unlike any other, and it actually felt larger than life. All of these posters just look so sick. They each had their own distinct vibe to them. They all look so beautiful, they're crafted so well, and they fit the time perfectly. There was just a different feel to them rather than the overproduced posters we have now. Speaking of things that I miss, WWE Magazine. I love that thing growing up as a kid. Sure, I didn't have the subscription, but I would go to the library and the first thing that I would turn to would be the roster. Yeah, the roster. That's the first thing that I wanted to see was the Divas. But yo, these covers were elite, god level. They don't make them like this anymore. And I mean, sorry to the library, but I was the one who ripped out the monthly posters. How about the sheer amount of moments that were created during this time? Cena's debut, Show and Lesnar making the ring collapse, Eddie winning at No Way Out 04, the legendary thumbs down from Batista, Mysterio winning the world title, HBK's sweet chin music to the mama's boy, the spear through a burning table, Edge's cash in, and so many more. With the good, we have to talk about the sad moments too. For a lot of us, when Eddie Guerrero passed away, it's a time that we won't ever forget. For many of us, this was our first introduction to the whole concept of death and the sheer amount of impact that it can have on the people around you. Let's take a nostalgia break. Do you guys remember this screen or these Mac computers at school? Crazy Frog, the Gummy Bear song, these weird ass sepia filters they throw on like every single music video. Or how about yo waiting for Teletoon to turn to all the dirty shows at nighttime? Oh man, yo, I'm thankful I have immigrant parents. They had no idea what any of that meant. Futurama was dope though. Yo, Drake and Josh, iCarly, freaking Robot Chicken, which I still don't understand. Or America's Funniest Home Videos, the old YouTube, Beyblades, Tamagotchis, Club Penguin, the old iPod, all the hit movies. This thing looks like it belonged in this era somehow. Yo, and a lot of us were lucky enough to witness blockbuster. Let's get back to the video. And of course, the matches. Some legendary all-out brawls, phenomenal storytelling, and some all-out classics. How about Edge vs Mick Foley at WrestleMania 22? The hardcore legend versus the hardcore motherfucker. These two went to war. Thumbtacks, barbed wire, top to bottom, it was crazy. How about HBK vs Triple H at SummerSlam 2002? First of all, SummerSlam 2002 on its own is one of the greatest pay-per-views ever. That show from the start with Ray and Kurt to the main event with Brock and Rock. Come on, give me that one more time. But Shawn versus Triple H, that story. HBK coming back in 2002 and then Triple H turned his back on him. These two just understood how to deliver the perfect amount of violence. We're back to Mr. Mick Foley. Cactus Jack versus Randy Orton at the 04 Backlash. How do you become a legend? You simply just kill them. That was Randy Orton's gimmick, and it's one of the best ever. He would destroy the greats in the business, and one of the most selfless humans helped him on the way, and that was Mick Foley. These two in a no holds barred falls count anywhere match. RKO tossed on the thumbtacks, but man, they just don't make them like this anymore. So thankful that I got to see Randy Orton's entire career. But pay-per-views were one thing. They gave us Kurt Angle versus Brock Lesnar in a 60-minute Iron Man match for the WWE Championship on free TV. These two machines back and forth, and at the end of the night, Brock Lesnar leaves with his hand held high and the new WWE Champion. There's so many more. Edge versus Cena at Unforgiven, Rock versus Brock at SummerSlam, Cena versus RVD, you motherfucker. Cena versus Michaels on Raw for nearly an hour, Batista versus Undertaker, Rock versus Hogan, the 07 Rumble, Cena versus Umaga. I could go on forever. For people who haven't witnessed the matches in this era, I do encourage you to give them a watch. They were spectacular. It was just wild. Barbed wire matches, first blood matches, inferno matches, and then you had JR with some legendary calls screaming at the top of his lungs. Not just that, but do you guys remember all the commercials that would air during this time? Not while watching wrestling, but during this time in general.
A regular towel doesn't work wet. This works wet or dry. This is for the house, the car, the boat.
I crush the alien. Well, I crush the director.
You did have some stupidity too. You had Kane and Lita. You had Vince versus God. You had Vince dying. You had Durag Vince. Oh my god, man. As much as people hate you, Vince, please never give this company up. And then you had Undertaker.
He literally gave it to TKO. Again, this video is like 3 years ago. Anywho.
Marrying Paul Bearer in 2004.
Yeah.
Oh my god, the sheer amount of stupidity that happened in this era, man.
Vince booking, by the way. It was Vince booking. And I guess some writers or whatever that they created. Oh boy.
Yo, how about all those stupid people that I remember too? Simon Dean, the FBI, Nathan Jones, Orlando Jordan, the Bashams, the Heidenreich. Oh my god, man. What a time, man. Do you guys remember that one voice in all the commercials too? The one that was like, and now, WWE Survivor Series.
That was the best one that they, I don't know if whoever made, you know, I'm sure they gonna edit it. Or maybe they found someone who can do that. And that, they did it really good because of that one voice.
I'll put it right here. I can't do it. That guy just did it too good.
WWE Survivor Series, live this Sunday, only on pay-per-view.
Man, oh man, that was a nostalgia trip. Only thing I couldn't sneak into this video was my love for sneakers, but there you go, I guess. This era was just so much fun. I loved everything about it. You just had to be there. This was such an influential time where we all just talked about the WWE and life was more simple for us. It gave us so many moments, matches, and it birthed our superheroes and our love for wrestling. For me growing up, life was about hockey, wrestling, and some of the other things I mentioned in this video. But the sad thing is, as we grow older, so do our heroes. But thankfully, the memories will always be there. The nostalgia will always hit. The video games will be there for generations of the future to play. The music will always bring back good memories. The commercials, the toys, it's all filled with nostalgia for us. How did we grow up so quick? This was our time. This was our attitude era. This was a time that we'll grow to tell our kids about. We loved it and we wouldn't trade it for anything. Nostalgia is the most painful feeling. It makes you wish you were in a better place. But as they say, don't cry because it's over. Smile because it even happened.
And that's the video, guys. All I can say is that I really enjoy this video when it comes to going back to memory lane and all the memories that had happened. But all I can say is that, you know, things have happened and time has changed, knowing that all of the good stuff that we used to enjoy as kids, we all get old at some point and focus on what's going to happen in the future. Again, this is basically a good video for all of us if we wanted to look back and see how we enjoy as kids, you know, different music that we listen, different shows we watch, and at the same time, especially when it comes to wrestling, like larger than life characters and how they progress, people that we're gonna remember how they did well in the business, like we used to love and hate this person. When it comes to, you know, knowing that they did well in their character, but overall I really, you know, enjoy this video. And again, this is basically how it all went down when you love the old era. And they say you can't change or you can't do the same thing as of now, even if they try to do it now, especially for this new era, the Renaissance of the Triple H era. Hopefully that they're gonna, you know, bring back a bit of nostalgic, something that kind of lacked throughout those years. But all I can say is that give it a like, comment down below as well, and let me know what is the best, you know, ruthless aggression moment. And then what is the best thing when you were a kid? What is the most nostalgic thing as a kid that you used to think that, okay, this is what I love as a kid by watching a good show or anything, like good music, just anything. All right, and also subscribe to the channel for more uploads in, you know, for future uploads and new videos coming up, and hit the bell for notifications as well. All I can say is that thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to Super Kick Studios, and we will see each other in the next video. Peace.